Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Tiffany Hunter, an energy healer in the United States. Welcome to Life Made Easier. Yay! The podcast where we explore energy, emotions, awareness, how all those things work together every day. We have conversations about how they affect you, the world around you, your relationships, stress, and help you be able to untangle those things to make clearer and easier decisions for yourself and ultimately make your life easier.
And I'm Dr. Karen Janes. Hi there. I'm a psychologist and energy healer in the UK. And today's episode is the last one in a three-part series about the aura. So in the first one, we talked about what an aura is. Then in the second one, we talked you through some ways to keep it clean. Did you know that was a thing? And in this, the final episode, we're going to talk to you about how to protect your aura and why that's an important thing to do. So do go back and listen to those previous two episodes first, because this one will make much more sense and be more useful to you if you are already understand what an aura is all about and have put in some practice cleaning your aura. It's kind of
Yes, for sure, the cleaning, because
yeah.
we're gonna teach you how to protect it here, but if you protect it with all the gunk inside with you, that's not very helpful.
Yeah, so definitely do the cleaning first. It's a bit like putting on clean clothes before you take a shower.
There's
Yeah.
a clothes get wet. This analogy is lost on me.
No. But like, I mean, you're not in the shower. Like, don't take a shower, just put clean clothes on. Like, you to feel really nice and clean, you want to take a shower and put clean clothes on.
And put
Not,
clean clothes
not
on.
don't.
Get it.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I'm with
So,
you.
how would you describe, Tiffany? What are we doing here? Protecting our aura. What does that mean to do that?
That's a great question that you've just put right in front of me. Okay. Um, so as we talked about previously, the aura is roughly around 2.5 feet around our body, including behind us, under our feet, and our heads. Does get distorted by things like the chair that I'm sitting in, the wall next to me, but roughly that's what it is. But it does expand. And when it expands, it gets more porous and more sensitive. And when it gets closer to my skin, it gets less sensitive and denser. But I don't want to walk around with an aura that's right up against my skin all the time, because that's going to feel a little stressful. That's going to feel a little tight. That's what happens when I'm sitting on the subway and I'm not really happy about all the crowds around me and everything gets really tight in. So if I want to be someplace and be relaxed on the inside, but still have an aura that is not as porous as it might be, so it's not picking things up, I probably do want it a little bit close to me. But mostly what I'm doing is I'm making the very outside layer, because the aura does have layers, I'm making the very outside layer dense as opposed to the entire aura dense. And by making that outside layer dense, I'm putting up a barrier so that when things come to me, they bounce off and bump out, go boing, back away from me, and don't come actually through the barrier. How is
That's a
that?
great description.
Yay!
You're so good at that kind of thing, defining things. I was thinking about the fact that we have talked quite a lot in this series of episodes about likening the aura to the skin. So the skin is the outer layer of our physical body, and the aura serves a very similar function for our energy body, our energy anatomy. And just as our skin can do a better job of being correctly the kind of correct amount of permeable, if that's there's better English to describe that.
Permeable correctness.
Yeah. If we take care of it. So if we let our skin get sunburn, or if we don't keep it dry, if we, there are things that we need to do, to a degree, it does it itself if it's healthy and we're healthy. But there are things we can do to help our skin do the best job it can, and we may sometimes need to do extra things to protect it a little bit more. I mean, it's not a perfect metaphor, and it kind of occurs to me that actually with the protecting, it feels a little bit harder to use the skin metaphor, because the kinds of things we might do for our skin are more perhaps external, like we might put clothes on, we might wear sunscreen or a hat, we might like cover it, or which I mean, I guess is kind of what we're doing when we're protecting our aura. As you say, we're kind of finding some way to make that outer layer a little bit more solid so that
Hmm.
it's does a better job of the filtering that we've talked about previously.
Yeah. And maybe it's also like, I think sunscreen might be the best, as you say,
Mhm.
putting something on that doesn't influence that. You make
Yeah,
me think about, in my example, I gave a pretty extreme example of being someplace where there's people bumping up against me and whatnot. But we also, there's also great benefit to having an aura that's protected, just living your life, just
and
walking around.
yeah, I mean, and that the degree, I always think of it as like the degree of protection required. So when I'm, you know, out in nature, when I'm at home, assuming home is a safe, comfortable place for me, I don't feel like I need such um, good, solid protection.
Hmm.
But I still want it to be able to filter stuff. And that's both, again, we talked about the stuff that we need to clean out of our aura is stuff that comes from the inside, but also stuff from the outside. So maybe that leads us neatly on to what are we protecting it against? And to speak for the stuff from the inside, you know, we don't want to be leaking energy. We might want to be able to release out emotional stuff that's got clogged in our aura, but we don't want to be like a sieve or a colander where, you know, our energy
Right.
is kind of leaking out and then we get really depleted. And things like certain substances or being in certain environments might, or things like damage to our aura might make that increasingly likely. So if we're feeling really, really drained, it's possible it's not purely a physical thing. It may be an energetic thing that actually we're leaking out energy somewhere. So
Hmm.
protecting our aura wherever we are, even if we're not in a really difficult environment, has some value, I think, to a degree. You know, we don't
Hmm.
need 3 layers of clothing and an umbrella and you know and sunscreen and all the things. We just need a you know a t-shirt and a whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. It definitely maintains the vitality, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's the stuff from outside that we want to stop getting in. And I don't know what you think of this, but in my mind, for the most part, it's not like there's anything actually malevolent or, you know, trying to harm you. It's just there's energy around you all the time that isn't you. So
Hmm.
you want to have your energy in your aura and not the energy of, you know, and you can, the more you take care of your aura, the more I think you can enjoy being in different environments and how they feel differently. But that's not the same thing as taking a person or a place's energy right into our energy system and carrying
Right.
it around with us.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a really great point because I think the most nefarious thing that we're protecting ourselves from in this context are other people's bad moods.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
That's
Yes.
probably the most nefarious. Other people's bad moods, other people's stroppy attitudes, temper tantrums, and also their desire for us to do what they want and not what we want.
Yeah, we talked about that in the episode about boundaries, didn't we? That kind of like low level, mild manipulation that we might all
Hmm.
fall prey to doing to others on occasion when we're just like annoyed that our partner didn't do the dishes again or didn't remember to put out the rubbish when we'd asked them to or something.
Hmm.
Or we kind of are feeling overloaded and we wanted them to, you know, step up and do something. You know, we probably all can do a little bit of that sometimes. Hope,
Absolutely, absolutely.
hopefully we can try and be aware of it and take a breath and then be more straightforward in our communication. But
Hmm.
the better protected our aura, I think, the more protection we have against the impact of that kind of stuff. And it might help you to say to your partner, look, hold on a second, I'm sorry I didn't do this thing. Can we just talk about it? Or, is there something we need to talk about? Yeah.
Right. And also to give us if we're irritated by something and then somebody is around us and they're irritated, even if they're irritated about something else, their irritation merging with my irritation, now I'm doubly irritated about the thing I was actually irritated about. So sometimes our emotions can be exaggerated. I
Yeah.
very rarely find the emotions made up from scratch. I would say exaggerated, right?
I think I've experienced that with anxiety. Like I've
Mm,
suddenly been like, why am I anxious? I don't know why I'm anxious. And then I realized it wasn't actually me that was anxious. It was somebody I was standing next to that was like, and perhaps worse when, or more impact, I should say, when someone's not being honest about what they're feeling.
yes.
So if you're, we're not always not being honest about that stuff because we're deliberately trying to mislead people. I think as you know, I do a lot of stuff around horses, and sometimes people can feel quite anxious about standing next to a horse.
Sure.
And but if they're in their mind thinking, oh, I need to like show I'm not worried and I need to, that creates a kind of discord in our bodies and our energy and in our minds even. And we might not have even realized it ourselves. So it's not that
Well,
we're,
and if we did, we wouldn't want to be pasting the walls with it and affecting other people.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I think this is the value of what we're trying hard to do here with everybody is to get across that we are porous, we are energy creatures, and even if you don't believe it or know it or want it to be true, it's true and it's affecting you. And this conversation around keeping your aura healthy and strong and independent of other things is crucial in order to navigate the world without being unduly influenced or tired
Hmm.
or give your dog too many treats. That was on my mind because I knew we were going to record this topic today. And this morning I was sitting on the couch and I'm like, what is happening? And I could like feel the sort of pressure on my aura. And again, probably sensitive to it because I knew we were going to record this. And I look up and my dog is staring at me, like boring holes in my eye, with her eyes. Like, I need a treat. I need a treat. You don't
I might
understand.
be
I
starving.
need the treat. I was like, wow, like this is such a great example of what we're talking about. And it was such a beautiful example of a great way to learn because her agenda is so pure and so
Mm.
uncomplicated. And there's no history of us fighting about treats. And, it doesn't have all this stuff to go with it. It was just this very clear example of somebody's energy pushing on me to try to get me up to give her a treat. Yeah.
Yeah,
Which
and
of
then
course
naturally,
gave
I
her
mean,
three.
with animals in that sense, it's usually much more straightforward. There isn't generally that, she's like has no qualms about wanting a treat. She's
Right.
not like, trying to secretly manipulate you or make you do something. She's just like, give me the treat. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And also a great example because I think if I didn't have a solid aura, a clean aura, I would, first of all, not have noticed that something's pushing on me. I certainly wouldn't have been able to identify it. I probably would have just given her a treat and not known why.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and at least it gives you a choice then. So you
Hmm.
you can give her the treat or not give her the treat to continue with our example, but you're doing it consciously. You're not walking around going, why am I doing all these things? I don't really want to be doing these things. And I
Yeah.
mean, there are other reasons we can end up doing things that we don't want to do. This is not the only one, but this reduces the impacts on us a bit that, then
Hmm.
we're left with the other reasons that we might end up doing stuff that we're perhaps isn't really good for us or we don't really want to do, and we can work on that, but at least it isn't coming from an outside influence.
Right. Right. I had another great example of it that came to my mind again. I was cognizant of it because I knew we were recording this. This happened a few days ago, but I was with somebody who was trying to pick a fight.
Right.
And again, I'm neutral and clean inside my aura, and my aura is as protected as I need it to be in that moment. So I'm watching them do this, and I'm watching their body language, I'm watching their tone of voice, I'm watching their language, but I'm also feeling the pokes from their energy, almost
Hmm.
trying to seek out and find the places in me to get me to bite back.
Right. Yeah.
And it's not the first time that I've had that experience. I'm sure you've had too. But I thought in that moment, I thought, oh, remember this, because this is also another wonderful example of when you get this stuff going under your belt, you can have that experience of just watching that happen in the real time, and then still having control over what comes out of your mouth because you don't have to get involved in a fight.
Hmm. Yeah, and I mean, we're talking very much about the kind of what I mean, I'm not very keen on the terms negative and positive in this sense because I think it perhaps helpful or less helpful, but we're talking about the kinds of things that might be unhelpful. We don't, that
Hmm.
might be fairly, most of us could agree that some of those things don't sound very helpful to us,
I suppose
hopefully.
it depends if you're
Um,
my dog or not. Jazzy thinks
well,
this is very helpful.
oh, I got her that time. Yeah, that's true. But if we're, human beings who are trying to learn to be, more open with ourselves and work on ourselves and, communicate clearly with people and find ways to meet our own needs without, trying to push people around, etc. Um, yeah, that might be, something which we could kind of go, yeah, that doesn't sound like a good thing, either that I'm doing it to someone else or that, I'm prey to them doing it to me. But I'm wondering about, like, are there more positive energies? I mean, we talked a little bit about just not wanting energy that isn't us. Can you think of any? I don't, I'm struggling to think of any. Can you think of any examples where there might be positive energy that we would want to let in?
I think that's a fascinating question, and I was like also racking my brain to think of a time when there might have been something positive or helpful going on that I felt like having a protected aura was preventing me from. But to be honest with you, I think in those situations we just instinctively don't protect our auras as much,
Hmm. I was thinking
right?
about occasions when I've like maybe literally, as in, I don't know, stood or sat on the earth or done something that looks a bit more like a meditation where I'm thinking about being connected to the earth. And I might want to allow a bit of an exchange of energy to happen between us, which might be about me releasing out stuff I don't need and allowing it to
Hmm.
be just absorbed into the
To kind
earth.
of come through your ground into the earth.
Yeah, but also replenish my energy, and allow the support of the earth's energy to kind of move into my body that
Right.
I wouldn't necessarily want to protect myself against.
Oh gosh, I see your question. Sorry, I thought you were asking is if having a protective aura would prevent experiencing the positive.
Yeah, I was kind of asking that,
Oh,
would it like, do we always want to keep it protected against anything? What are the examples where we want to allow, what's the stuff we
right,
want to allow in, I guess?
right, right. Yeah, for sure. Or just walking, just also just hanging at home on the couch watching marathon back to back Lord of the Ring movies with my husband. Is that too revealing of my nerdy geek ways? I want, I don't want a protected aura then to any real extent if it, right? Like, yeah. But I think it's natural, and tell me if I'm saying this out loud sort of for the first time. Tell me if you agree. I think it's natural to have the least amount of protection as a default because it takes effort to add a protection. So I don't know that I've ever been in a situation where I've thought, "Ooh, I should lower my protection." I think, but I've had many situations where I've thought, "Oh, I should increase mine." I mean,
Yeah, I wonder if like people, if you're struggling with intimacy,
sure.
that might be an
Yeah.
occasion where you might be a bit overprotecting yourself, or you're really anxious about a situation that maybe, the anxiety is real, but the threat isn't real. Like you're
Okay, but
actually in.
what do you think about this idea? I would, in those situations, having a protected aura, even if it's slightly overprotective, may be a great idea because it will give that person greater confidence and security so that they can be more intimate emotionally and relax.
Yeah, and I think if you're in doubt, err on the side of over rather than under for sure. But
Yeah.
I wonder if that might keep you a bit more disconnected from the environment you're in than you need
Mm-hmm.
to be.
Mm-hmm.
But it's, I think there is no, it's one of those situations where it's like we can't give people a measuring tape or a scale for exactly how protected should your aura be in any given situation. And it's going to be really individual. Some people may need to keep themselves really protected within their own home. And if that is feeling
Yes.
true for you, then, we would really hope that you would find the support you need to make whatever changes you need to make so that that's not the case anymore. Um, yeah, but I mean, I certainly had experiences of housemates or relationships going south that, maybe has meant I've ended up needing to be or wanting to be a little bit more
Mm-hmm.
kind of protected at
Mm-hmm.
home than
Mm-hmm.
ideally I want my
Yeah.
home life to be. Not
Yeah.
not
Or
necessarily
even
because
if it's
anyone's
just because your
doing
partner's
anything.
right, even if it's just because your partner's going through a hard time this week,
Yeah. Yeah,
and
yeah.
this week is not the week to walk around being unprotected.
hmm Or you're feeling a bit more vulnerable that week and you just
Mm-hmm.
need to kind of keep your energy a little bit more you and a bit less flowing with your environment.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, it's work to protect your aura. It takes work
hmm
to, and it doesn't last forever. It lasts for a few hours, I would say. How about you?
Well, that's a question I don't think I've ever really asked myself. How long does this last? Yeah, it feels like it's something which you probably need to, yeah, keep an eye on, and
Hmm.
maybe, I mean, a little bit like drinking water, depending on the circumstances.
I was just gonna say,
Depend-
and I think a couple of hours is like
Mm,
absolute extra, like maximum time. If I'm at a rock concert, I'm every 15 20 minutes.
mm. But I think the more you practice all these skills we've been talking about, and this is where it's so important to work on the cleaning part. The first step is like, where do I end? Do I
Hmm.
extend beyond my physical body, and can I start to tune into that a little bit? The next step is, can I find ways to effectively clean my aura, and then start thinking about the protection, and having all of those parts together will also help you to be more aware of when you need more protection, a bit like you're describing with your dog. Kind of, I mean, she wasn't like, it was a benign kind of request, but like you say, if you're somewhere that feels really chaotic or stressful, you may keep it almost like you start to become, okay, I'm feeling more affected by this environment. It also that makes me think that for me, there are places that I'm fine there for a period of time. And then I might, and maybe again, particularly like if you start to get a bit tired or
Yes.
whatever, then I might start to think, okay, I need to work a bit harder at this. I need a bit more
Hmm.
protection now because, this is like running out a bit and I'm kind of done and maybe I really need to leave, but I can't quite leave yet. Or, you know, then you might
Yeah.
need a bit more. Or if
I
other people
also
around you
think that
are
even, yeah,
more tired and start,
and no protection keeps everything out. So if you're in an environment where you're feeling like you need to separate yourself energetically from what's
Mm,
happening around you, you're not going to succeed 100%. So fast forward being in that environment 45 minutes, some of it is going to have gotten through. So it's absolutely going to wear you down over time.
I guess that works for our sunscreen metaphor that
Yes, it
no
does.
amount of sunscreen, particularly if you have skin the color of mine, um, is gonna mean I can stay in the sun, when it's
Right.
really hot indefinitely.
Yeah.
It gives me more time before my skin is going to start to get really damaged or affected. But
Hmm.
it does, we're not talking about something that will suddenly make our aura waterproof.
Right.
Or
Yeah. And even reapplication at some point, you just need to go home.
yeah,
Get away from your,
or
stop
cover up,
visiting your
or
friend in Florida and get out of the beach. Get
yeah,
into the air conditioning.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about how we actually do it.
hmm Maybe the most important thing with this is exactly what we said about cleaning the aura, which is this can't just be a mental exercise. So it's no good just imagining a pretty picture in your head of some, perfectly protected aura, however you decide to imagine that. And also, like cleaning your aura, it doesn't really matter what image you have in your mind. Can you be in your body? Can you feel gravity? Can you have that sense of where do I end? So where am I even putting this protection? Is it like 5 centimeters away from me, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Yeah, so start there. That's really important, I think,
Yeah,
giving yourself
this
there.
is almost impossible to do if you
Yeah.
haven't developed some awareness. And I'm having this moment where I'm just are we setting people up to fail? And I'm so sorry if we are. I mean, when we teach this class, it's when I teach this class, I don't know how long yours is. It's an 8-week class. We meet for 8 weeks over 2+ months. Like this is not but this is the information, right, guys? Like I don't know that I mean there's a little bits and a little bobs there, but the information that we're giving you is mostly complete. Just please be gentle with yourselves that if you feel like, God, I can't listen to this podcast once and then do it tonight.
I was just going to say there might be some value in like set yourself a reminder to listen to it again
Mm-hmm.
several times, possibly. If
Yeah.
nothing else, just to jog your memory. Because I think it's really easy with, I mean, many changes we want to make in our lives. It's so easy to do it once or twice and then, get distracted. And maybe it felt a bit hard to do because it's new
Mm-hmm.
and we're still getting to grips with it. And maybe we didn't feel a huge benefit immediately. So, how long do we, keep remembering to try? And then we just forget about it. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's absolutely something like the cleaning your aura. If you can find some way, I think your suggestion in our last episode was every time you visit the bathroom,
Mm-hmm.
or toilet if you're in the UK, because we just like tell it like it is. Um, um,
How I
we
started saying restroom because I couldn't quite bring myself to do toilet, but I got made fun of for bathrooms. There's no
yeah,
bath in there.
yeah. Although I mean, we also don't really have restrooms here because you're not going there to rest. But anyway, I digress.
You're going
Or
there
you
to
might,
clean your aura.
yeah, maybe you are taking a minute. So, pair it with something that you're doing quite frequently, and that will help you to remember. But kind of trying to make a commitment to, I'm going to try and do this every day, maybe ideally several times a day for at least a week or preferably a few weeks before I make a judgment about, is this too hard, or is this actually useful, or is there really any point in
Or
me
I'm
doing
not
this?
very good at this, or
Yeah,
okay, but
yeah.
back to the how to. So,
Go for it.
crucially, you need to have a sense, as we talked about in the previous 2 episodes, of where your aura ends and what it feels like. But to be honest, actually, even I don't know how crucial that is. It's important. It certainly makes your life easier. What's much more crucial is that you connect to your body
hmm
in some manner. Because if you're not, if you're just intellectual, if you're just in your head, you're just creating visualizations and bleh, I don't know. I don't want to repeat everything we said in the last episode about why and how that's a problem. So just go listen
hmm
to that. But it's not going to get you anywhere.
Yeah.
You need to connect to your body. You need to do in some way to remind yourself that you have a physical presence with gravity and weight and space that you take up. And feet, usually, is what gets forgotten.
And feet and backs, I think.
Feet and backs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your presence in physical space. You need to connect to your body because the things that we're going to talk about, just like we talked about in the last episode, is just the way that your mind is making a request,
Right.
right? The
Mm.
visualization is the language of request to say to your body instead of using your nerves and your neurological system to say, move my hand, you're saying to your aura, please clean yourself. And you're doing that with this, I'm sorry, please protect
Protect
yourself.
yourself.
And you're
Yeah.
doing that with this, you're doing that with the language of visualization. But if you're not connected to the body, you might as well be speaking some language the body doesn't listen to. It can't listen to you if you're not connected to it.
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the common images to think about is a having a bubble or a an egg shape, maybe some kind of a cocoon, some kind of like thing that contains you a bit away from your body, and really traveling to start with, traveling around your body with your mind in the same way you might do a body scan, where you go through your body and check in with the different places in your body. Am I tense? Am I in pain? Am I feeling something that I need to pay attention to? So with the protection, we want to really, think about, as Tiffany said, above your head, right down each side of your body, behind you, in front of you. If you're sitting, underneath where you're sitting, and if you're standing, well, and either way, then underneath your feet. So really trying to make sure that that you've kind of done everywhere. And for some people that might be a careful walk round in your mind, with trying to feel round, not just mentally imagining it. And I think this is another thing that we feel really aware of, that this is much easier for us to teach people if we're in the room with you. So do your best. Yeah, but for other people might almost be, can I just picture the whole instantly and then feel that surrounding me?
Mm-hmm. Like, and if you think about your aura, it's exactly what you probably think it is, which is a little bubble that you sit in. It's a little cocoon that you sit in. And as you may recall, what I said when we started was you're making the outside layer into something harder, like a crust. So you may remember in the beginning, we started this with, I said that what you're doing technically is making the most outside layer of the aura denser. Not the whole aura, just the outside layer. And that creates a kind of film, a kind of crust. So if you feel yourself on the inside, there's you on the inside, and then there's the energy that starts with your skin and goes forward to that crust edge. And then beyond that is the room. So everything from the edge of your aura into your skin should be nice and soft and relaxed as you. And then there's this boundary that you can make as hard as you like. And then on the outside of that is everything that's not you. And usually a great way to think about that is to start at your toes and go backwards to your heels, up and over and around.
That's really
and that
interesting. I
Pardon?
don't go that way round.
I usually suggest it in the beginning because people often forget that they have a back and sides and head. So if you go backwards, up and over, you'll never forget that.
Hmm.
And then you're
Yeah,
kind of like putting yourself in a giant hoodie.
right. Yeah, but I think absolutely play around with it to see
Mm-hmm.
what feels easiest for you, what kind of works with your mind, and what helps you best to really be connected into your body as you're doing it. And also trying to really pay attention to how do I feel when I started trying to do this, and how do I feel when I kind of think I'm complete? Is there a difference? Does something feel, it doesn't matter if you can't put words to it, but does something feel a little bit different? Because that will help you to start to build some confidence with it. And you will almost certainly be not sure you're doing it right to start with,
Oh,
and
for sure.
maybe on and off for quite some
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And then one day you think, oh, do you know, I really felt a difference then. I feel like I got it. And then the next time you try, you're like, oh, no, I don't know again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you have, and again, remember the visualization itself is just language that you're using. So find whatever visualization works for you. It's the body, it's the physical body's energy that's all around you that you're working with. So if you have a sense of cocoon, I know some people who put up shutters.
Hmm.
They close all the shutters down, right? Everything gets clamped down. All the shutters come down. I know somebody else who thinks of it like a mirror.
Yeah, mirror reflecting outwards.
Mirror reflecting outward. So everything
Yeah.
coming towards you gets bounced off and goes back out again.
Hmm.
Yeah,
I've
you've
also
got to
heard
find the one that works for you.
I've also heard people talk about maybe when they know they're going to be in an environment where things it might be really difficult to be there, to think of something like armor or
Hmm.
something a bit stronger. And for some people, again, depending on your the way your brain works, the way your body works, adding a color or a
Yes.
sensation or a texture might
Hmm.
help you to feel it more. Like green feels nice around me. That feels like a nice protective for me, or pink,
Yeah.
or it doesn't matter the color. There is no right color. Just whatever feels kind of most protective for you,
Hmm.
safest, like most
Hmm.
comfortable.
Yeah. And you can make that edge as thick or as thin as you want to. And in this way, there's some actual reality to how thick or thin you make that layer. But don't worry about that. Just to the state that you feel comfortable. However thick or thin, spongy, solid, wood, however you want to do it, that makes it best for you.
Yeah, and I think the only way you can really do it wrong is not doing it very effectively, which is
Sure.
most likely to be because you're not really feeling into your body. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Although it also occurs to me that there may be occasions where you would really benefit from seeing an energy healer who can work to make sure your aura is in as best a state as possible. Just like you might have some kind of, I don't know, you might see a dermatologist or you might have a do a more in-depth treatment on your skin if you're having some problems with it and it's not essentially healthy and working well. So
Yeah.
if you feel like you're trying to do this and it isn't working very well for some reason, even just somebody who can give you some Reiki, that will really help because that helps the aura to repair itself and which ultimately then strengthens
Mm-hmm.
it.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned in the last episode about how you feel that standing out in the sunshine strengthens your aura. So
I
do you,
do.
yeah, I don't know if that by itself is the same thing as protection, but that may also help a little bit.
I don't have a sense that, I mean, I'm laughing because sun is new to me, right? Because I was in the San Francisco Bay Area, which has about the same climate as London, right? So I didn't
No, it
get a
doesn't.
lot of,
No.
maybe not quite as bad as London, but I didn't get a lot of sunshine like I do now in Florida. So I am learning about the sun. I would say it's not cleaning or protective. When I say nurturing and rebuilding, it's more like maybe closer to what Reiki does.
Hmm.
Not nearly as well, certainly not as quickly or as effectively, but that it kind of it just sort of, I want to say like moisturizer. Like
Rejuvenates.
rejuvenates, yeah, but it's like rejuvenation. Yeah.
Hmm.
I think that just to give people hope and a like lighthouse to look for, and I think we've said this about Reiki too for different reasons, but when you have a clean, protected aura that you can rely on, not only do you have these situations like we started off with somebody trying to manipulate me to give them treats or try to pick a fight with me that, try to find my buttons, right? You also just can sit more calmly in your own body.
Hmm.
And you made me think of it because if that's a problem, if having a clean aura or feeling your aura or sealing yourself inside your aura, feels uncomfortable, it might be because you need some support from somebody, from a professional healer, to help get whatever inside there out that you haven't been able to get out yourself.
Mm, yeah, that's a really good point, I think, important. And you know, and if you've experienced some kind of trauma as well, this is
Hmm.
likely to be harder. As we talked about again with the aura cleaning episode, in doing these things, you might highlight to yourself some things which you've maybe been avoiding a little bit. Um, you know, it might feel emotions might come up, or the world
Hmm.
might feel a little bit different. And ultimately, I think you know, people find it's a good thing, but the journey
Sure.
to there can feel a bit uncomfortable or a bit unsettling. And
Hmm.
you know, even if it's just something as simple as like you go to the chiropractor or the osteopath and they move your body about and it's in better balance, but it feels weird because you've been walking around wonky for
Yeah.
some time, and that can feel a bit like, oh, this is a little disconcerting.
Hmm. And
Yeah.
last week you made the comment that having a clean aura is kind of like cleaning the windshield. You've got greater vision about, and that's a beautiful, wonderful experience, assuming you like what you're looking at,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Assuming
Yeah.
assuming that what you're looking at isn't upsetting.
Hmm. And
And getting rid of all that white noise, sometimes you have greater clarity about things, and that's not always welcome. That's not always comfortable.
yeah, and I think it's also worth acknowledging that some of why this is perhaps more important than ever is because we live in a world that's really difficult to live in. The way humans have evolved, our world has kind of got less and less natural. So there are
Hmm.
things we're having to deal with all the time that 20 years, 50 years, 100 years, 200 years, we wouldn't have had to have dealt with. And so we probably, and the density of people and all of that kind of stuff that has, you know, makes living in this world tough sometimes. So
Yeah.
if it's with any of these things, you know, be gentle with yourself and try and play around with it, be creative. We've mentioned some of the images that can help people tune in, but you know, if something else occurs to you, please just, you know, go with that. Do what feels good and useful for you.
Yeah. Okay, well, hopefully we have done a better job this time of not just giving theory, but giving a whole lot of how to do it, and people will feel more confident doing it. We hope that it worked. We hope that if that you enjoyed it, let us know if you have any questions or anything like that. Remember, if there's more examples and experiments that you want to have at home, join Patreon, because every episode has a member packet that has a list of experiments you can try by yourself to try some of this stuff out and put the theory into practice. And it's been wonderful being here with you guys.
Yeah, the other thing that with this particularly, that, and maybe this is true of all our topics, that occurs to me with the member packages, that gives you something concrete to like keep on your phone or on your
Mm-hmm.
computer or even print out, so which can help you to remember. Whereas you listen to a podcast, maybe you then listen to another podcast and it's kind of gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think with all these things as well, give them a try to start with when you have you know, a little bit of time to yourself where you can really concentrate and focus and you're not distracted doing something else. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to having you with us next time.
Bye, guys.